I want to begin with a potential in-house candidate. I think it's only right to talk, to look at somebody who might be on the staff already who will get a look. And I do think Gerad Parker will, at least there will be some conversations about Gerad Parker. And let's talk about a couple reasons why. Number one, trust. There's
Yep.
nobody out there that Marcus Freeman is going to trust more than Gerad Parker, just from a having my back and that kind of thing, right? You have to have that conversation. You and I have done a lot of digging on this, Ryan, with him at West Virginia, that he was basically told, you're running Neil Brown's offense. It wasn't necessarily what he wants to do. So, he's a guy that has experience coaching at Penn State, coaching at Purdue, coaching at some other places. So I do think it's at least worth mentioning Gerad Parker is a potential candidate because of like I said, he has experience calling the offense before. He's worked with David Cutcliffe, which to me means a lot. You know my stance on that, the fact that he spent 2 years working with David Cutcliffe. And of course, he has a guy that actually has coordinator experience, although he wasn't someone who necessarily ran his own offense. But that's kind of how it would be at Notre Dame. If they did promote Gerad Parker, I'm not saying they're going to. We're just saying it's an option. And maybe do some like co-coordinator thing with like him as the coordinator and then like Dylan McCullough or Harry Heastan or something like that. Then, you would have a situation where there is that continuity we talked about. They would basically run the offense that we've seen them run with some wrinkles. And the one thing I did see from Gerad Parker at West Virginia, Ryan, is he runs a lot of RPOs. Yes. And, was very much a spread it out kind of guy. But again, that's more of a Neil Brown thing than necessarily a Gerad Parker thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting look because I would also say, at West Virginia, his quarterback that year was Jarret Doege, right? And for people that don't remember Jarret Doege, he ended his career this year. I forget where he ended up transferring to, but he is a weaker armed quarterback, right? So sometimes people run RPOs out of necessity. It's not actually what they want to do. So I can't really comment on what his belief in the RPO system is. All we know is that he was under Neil Brown. Neil Brown was a very 11 personnel, 10 personnel type of system that just wanted to spread things out. There's a lot of air raidy type of feel to what Neil Brown does. And again, this doesn't necessarily mean that's what Gerad Parker believes in. It's what Gerad Parker wants to do. But there was a big air raid emphasis. So you'll see a lot of wide splits from wide receivers. You'll see a lot of outside vertical stuff. You're just trying to isolate areas, basically. So that's kind of what you saw, and a lot of inside zone, a lot of RPO pull off of the inside zone as well. So that's kind of what you saw there. But again, we don't know if that's what Gerad Parker really believed in, or if that is just a by factor of Neil Brown being the head coach, obviously.
And by the way, he went to Troy and got beat out. Yeah. By the way.
He's bad, man. He was a bad player.
Based on a conversation I had recently, I have a feeling that Gerad Parker likes RPOs a lot. And I'll share that with you after the show, Ryan. I forgot to mention that to you. But I have a feeling based on a conversation that I had with some people that he's an RPO guy himself. So I think we'll see that. I think we'll see that in the offense because there's a lot of these guys who they use RPOs a whole lot more than Notre Dame does. So I think RPOs are certainly something that we'll see a lot more of moving forward. So I do think Gerad Parker's a guy to keep in mind, right? There's a reason Marcus Freeman brought him on staff. Even if it's something as like a co-coordinator type of situation, maybe something like that will happen. But that all depends on who he's able to bring in. I mean, it could be a thing where maybe you have to bring a guy in because we're going to kind of do a co-thing and it's going to be more of a staff-generated thing. Maybe that's the route they might have to go if they can't get one of the more proven guys. We'll have to see about that, Ryan. But that is certainly something that is going to be interesting to look into.
And we've seen the co-coordinator thing work in certain spots, right? I mean, you think of like LSU 2019, which I know we'll have a deep conversation here in a couple of minutes, right?
But yeah, that's the next guy that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, but they did the co-coordinator thing, right? I mean, you think about when Clemson was at its best, they had the co-coordinators with Tony Elliott. And so, I mean, it's been successful in spurts, right? It has.
Right. Well, it's all about what's the structure that you have, right? Because to your point about LSU, technically Steve Ensminger was the offensive coordinator that year. And basically he would call the plays and Joe Brady would basically design the game plan. And then Steve Ensminger would call it and Joe Brady would have a big say on what was called. But as you said, I think Clemson did it as good as anybody's done it, in my opinion. Washington this year, we always talk about Ryan Grubb being the offensive coordinator, but Jacoby Shepard was the pass game coordinator and had a big say in things. Kalen DeBoer had a big say in it. So I think a co-coordinator situation could work if it's the right guys, but there'd have to be some buy-in. And, you know, like Tony Elliott and Jeff Scott had been at Clemson for a little bit together. So there was a relationship there. So it would be interesting to see how it would go, you know, but that's something to consider if maybe one of the top guys come. Like, we'll mention a couple guys here in a minute that are veteran guys. You're not bringing them in to be co-coordinators. They're not leaving their jobs as current OCs at the Power 5 level or current head coaches at the Division I level to become a co-coordinator. That's just the reality of it.